we're going to do some introductions first of us, and then you all are going to introduce each other to each other. We'll explain it more. Intros. Sart.
Sart Rowe. I used to run LSNTAP for about 8 years, helping legal services orgs implement new technology. Left to go to a startup that kind of exploded, not in the good way, and then started a new nonprofit law firm called Law for All over at inclusivelaw.org. I'm also on the board of Northwest Consumer Law Center, and I do a lot of public speaking and online trainings.
Okay, how many people do not know what LSNTAP is? Does every single person know what that is?
So LSC funded a program for about 12 years where they did free trainings every month, online webinars. It's at lsntap.org. They also have an email list with about 800 legal services technologists. By legal services technologists, I mean it could be the guy or girl who knows the most about technology and got put in charge of the entire budget and bringing back up the servers, even though they have nothing to do with tech. Or it could be a system admin or somebody in charge of social media who happens to run the Twitter account because that's considered tech. And the email list is probably the best place to ask questions of your peers because somebody there knows what they're doing and can answer questions. You can get on the email list. It's on the front page of lsntap.org. Scroll down a little bit. There's a Google form you fill out, and then somebody adds you to the email list.
You mentioned you did a lot of trainings through LSNTAP. Can you talk a little bit more about some of your other educational experience, as in educating others?
In order to try to pay rent and have something to eat while I was in college, I taught small children how to play chess. There is nothing better than watching like an 8-year-old crush their parents at chess and realize that their parents make mistakes and could be wrong. Like that's how you instill rebellion in small children. If they want to play, it's great. If they don't want to, they will let you know. Children can be a little difficult to teach. Love teaching them though.
Do you think that experience has helped you as a lawyer or as a legal educator?
Now that I do family law, dealing with children has really influenced my ability to deal with conflict, definitely. And some of the same engagement techniques that keep children paying attention are useful. Law school does not teach you how to teach anyone anything, so different techniques are needed if you're going to teach adults.
That's a little controversial. Does anybody think that law school teaches you how to teach others the law? Okay.
Okay.
If you disagree, feel free to pipe up. I'm Daniel Ediger. I worked with SART for a long time at Northwest Justice Project in Seattle. We're the only LSC recipient in Washington State. We have 17 offices across Washington. And SART and I worked on a lot of tech training projects through the years. I'm a staff attorney there. I had a split position for 6 or 7 years where Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I answered the phone on our coordinated legal education, advice, and referral hotline, or CLEAR. And that's just being an attorney answering the phone on every civil legal issue across the state of Washington. And that was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there, you notice there's an education component in that job. So I got some experience in talking to people about the law as they were getting evicted or needed a domestic violence protection order. And then the other 2 days, I basically worked on our statewide website, educational website, Washington Law Help, helping generate content, making videos, mostly, through grants and other projects, YouTube videos. And before I went to law school to talk about learning how to train or learning how to educate before law school, because we already established law school doesn't teach you how to teach people about the law or anything else. My undergraduate degree, I had a painting degree. Painting is like using pigment and putting it on canvas. I don't know if anybody does that. Did a lot of, or wood. I taught art to grade school kids, middle school kids, one-on-one classrooms. I ended up doing an AmeriCorps year in New York at a middle school where teachers were asking me to make videos in a classroom. Like the Spanish teacher was like, we should make videos to help kids learn how to learn Spanish vocabulary, cooking videos. We were burning them on DVDs. YouTube hadn't been invented. It seemed like technological wizardry. And so teaching teachers how to make videos, like use iMovie, so I did that. Now any middle schooler can make way better videos than the stuff we were doing, like any middle schooler. So that's me. You'll probably learn more about me later. Lizzie?
Sure. And I'm Lizzie Shackney. I work at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid in our Austin office, and I'm the Director of Analytics and Research, which is a role that I am defining every day in new ways. And so my background in teaching is only one summer of teaching 7th graders an English curriculum. We ended up ditching the book that we were supposed to be reading because we weren't allowed to assign homework. We couldn't make homework mandatory. So the book, we just couldn't do the book outside of class and ended up just teaching about the school to prison pipeline, which they liked a lot more than the book. But 7th graders are really challenging because, I don't know if you know this, but middle schoolers are dating each other, and that is a real distraction from learning. So this then carried over to coaching a middle school debate team, which it's a great environment for, getting people talking, getting people, engaged in topics and a lot of interactive opportunities. But again, my basis of education experiences with middle schoolers, and I really do carry that over into my trainings with adults. And the other person that I have to thank for my limited skills in teaching is my mother, who does not feel very confident with technology and has given me a lot of really blunt feedback on my explaining to her how to use something. And she's really honest with me when I make her feel bad about her skills. So I've learned to, go at her speed, be really kind, be really understanding, boost her confidence. And so all those things together, not to brag, but I think I'm a fun, kind trainer.
Thank you, Lizzie. And now a little bit of that work that we were talking about, because this is a workshop. We're sticking to that. Just one task. Everyone's going to have to come out of the 8 a.m. introversion, which I would be in too. I'd be in the back. Can you answer three questions to somebody just nearby? Just say what your name is, state what state you are currently living in or from, and a word to describe your state of mind right now. I'll go first. I'm Daniel Ediger. I live in Washington State. I'm excited and nervous. Okay, everybody do that. We're going to do a little bit of interaction right now. And so we're going to talk, each of us, about some of our experiences teaching staff and the public about the law, about tech, about training, and all that stuff. But first, since you're all here, you're interested in this topic, we want to hear if there are actual projects live out there that you are working on that you're hoping to improve by learning from this session. And then later on, we're going to go into smaller groups, the ones that we're just starting to coalesce and form. And we don't know how many groups there will be yet, because we don't know how many projects are out there yet. We have numbered papers. We can go up to 8. Is that right? 10, possible.
Wow.
We don't have to do 10, we can do 5. But so now, who is brave enough to just say, yep, I'm working on something and I would like to know more or have help?
Hi, I'm Tom Walker, Cleveland Legal Aid. So we switched to Legal Server last summer from Pica. In Pica, we used Crystal Report Server. Everybody in the organization was very dependent on the reports to manage their work. Legal Server, you can't easily use this, Crystal, and I cannot get people excited to use any reports in Legal Server. So we've been trying to get people to use them, and we will continue to train people to use them, but it doesn't seem insurmountable, but it is.
Okay, I'm going to try to repeat back what I think you said, because I know the word legal server, because we have that. I've worked with that a lot. I've never really heard of Pica. That's another one. Thank you, Sue. And then there was another one, Crystal? Crystal Reports, okay. And then,
That's not really relevant. We can't use that anymore. So it's really training people on the reports.
So the goal of the project is to get people to use the internal reporting function inside of Legal Server efficiently and effectively.
okay, I think that could be a number.
Okay.
There's going to be people coalescing there. Can we go here? Oh,
Excellent.
yes.
We will get you in his group when we get to the group section.
Why don't we call that number one? And just remember number one if that's something you're interested in.
And we'll put this up on the slides when we divide people into groups. Other
And-
projects.
Now's the time to reveal that at the very end, whoever comes up with the best feedback or project or idea wins a prize. Okay, we just gamified it.
My name is Nancy Green. I'm with Nassau Suffolk Law back here. I don't really need a microphone, but I'll use
Okay.
it anyway. I'm with Nassau Suffolk Law Services in New York. We are in the process of changing our case management system from time. We have almost made our decision where we're going between Legal Server and Justice Server, and we are going to have a huge learning curve for my elder attorneys and elder staff because we are going to change to Document Management Server as well, and the training is going to be unbelievable.
Wow, how many people are you talking about training?
We have 100 people on staff.
100? How many were you talking about? Yeah, okay, almost 100. Okay.
So this is how to transition between time and another case management system with a staff of 100.
Okay, we're calling that number two. Remember number two.
Hi, I'm Joanne Sorotkin. I'm from Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, which is in New York. We are on Legal Server, so I can certainly speak to the benefits. We've been on for 5 years. Our project is we are transitioning from shared servers to SharePoint online, and my concern is how to train staff to embrace this new technology and teach them to use the tagging mechanisms in there. And because our old shared drive sort of mess, so this is a chance to wipe the slate clean and do it well and try to get people to use naming conventions and structure in a way. So, and we have 160 people in our program.
160 people need to learn how to use SharePoint, basically. Is that right? I'm
I
going to
need
talk
help.
about this in a little bit. A little bit. Because we also moved to SharePoint, have SharePoint. I teach about SharePoint. Last week, I think I was teaching. That's number 3, SharePoint.
My name's Sebastian Vigil. I'm from Central California Legal Services out of Fresno. We have about 72 people, and exact same situation as that one right there. Yeah. Same.
Do you want to be part of 3 or your own, like competing SharePoint ideas?
So is anybody doing any training aimed at the public at large on how to do legal stuff?
My name's Rebecca Rogstead. I'm with Alaska Legal Services, and right now we're developing 5 training modules on different areas of the law for non-attorney advocates to specifically help our clientele in rural areas where we're seeing we're having a hard time getting attorneys to go and help. So right now we have 2 of the training modules up and running, and we're developing the last 3, and that's a large chunk of my job at moment. And I'm seeing a lot of the issues I'm having right now are once I get people enrolled and started, I can't get them to finish.
To finish the module itself? or
Yeah,
to-
the class itself.
Okay. How many modules or classes are there?
Right now we have 2 running, and they're going to be 5 in total. And the third one is almost out, like up and running.
What's the legal issues?
Yeah, so the 2 running ones are SNAP, so food stamps benefits issues, and wills drafting. And then we've got ICWA enforcement is the third one that we're getting up and running, and then we'll have debt collection and bankruptcy.
And the people you're teaching are not attorneys, but are they like social workers or counselors?
Yeah, so it depends on which class we have. So for SNAP, we're gearing it towards health aides, social workers, our library social workers, our grad students, and our like community leaders in the Native villages throughout Alaska. And then for wills, we're gearing it towards more elder services, so our senior service centers and houses, and also our social workers. And then for ICWA, we're gearing it towards our ICWA workers and advocates.
Okay, so this is do we have a number? Number 4, teaching non-attorneys about legal issues. This is challenging. So should we go up to 6? Does that seem like about right? We have 1 here, 1 here. Keep in mind, by the end of the session, we're all going to want to come up with like one thing, one action step that you're going to take for these projects. And then we're going to announce those. And then we're all going to kind of like vote by consensus in a way. I'm not sure how it's going to work. But somebody's going to win a gift card.
Hi, my name is Sarah Galvin, and I work at Justice and Aging. And we run a national resource center called the National Center on Law and Elder Rights. And we do about 2 to 3 webinars a month, and they're very like standard go-to-webinar format, like 1 hour, 10 minutes of questions at the end. But we want to experiment with like new format that will let people like get more engaged and maybe do a little less like direct talking and have more like interaction with each other and other participants. The challenge is that a lot of our webinars get like 500 to 2,000 people on them. So it's, we're trying to think of ways to kind of engage but not have like, thousands of
Wow.
comments coming in at once.
500 to 2,000 people watching a webinar.
Right.
Wow, this is interesting. And are these all lawyers or a mix of non-lawyers?
It's a mix. I think it's usually about 20% attorneys, and then like the rest are social services or government workers.
And so as of now, it's usually just somebody like presenting and everyone just is like silently listening and you wish that you could get more feedback?
Yeah,
through
or
these
like
webinar
do
things?
something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask how many people you're talking about training.
Right now we have 18 enrolled in the SNAP class and 5 in the wills, but we want to get at least 50 in each class.
Okay, smaller group.
And
Okay.
I will definitely be over to talk a little bit about that with you, because there are some polling functions and some other audience feedback that can help with engagement there. Almost nobody uses it on the tool, but when I've seen it used, it does increase how long people pay attention and whether or not that's their major window that is up. So yes.
And sorry, you used to do webinars all the time at LSNTAP, right?
Yes.
What was the audience for those usually?
They ranged from 10 to 300 on the webinars.
Okay.
So.
So one more project, and then we're going to go into the lecture mode.
My name is Kathleen Cole, and I'm with the Arizona Bar Foundation. We are actually looking to restart a program called Law for AZ, where we train state librarians and law librarians and other stakeholders throughout the entire state. So we're talking probably about 250 people on all of the virtual resources that are available throughout the state. But a big part of that is most of these people are very remote. And so how to best expand training materials to remote areas of the state.
And many people do you think are going to be trained through this project? 250, okay. And the legal topics are general?
Just everything from how to access our online legal aid intake to how to access court forms, just a wide variety.
How to access legal services, including your own intake. Okay, so that's number 6. There will be a prize for somebody who can briefly summarize all 6 of those projects in 20 minutes. Does anybody think they're up to that challenge? Okay, it's 8:25 start. We're going to start the us talking component, just us talking at you. But feel free to ask questions because, remember, interactive.
So one of the first things to consider, and Daniel really brought this out, is what is the size of the target audience? We had planned different presentations today. If the 80 people who had registered for this made it out on the town in Portland and only 10 made it. We would have had a much smaller group discussion. Each person would have introduced themselves to each other, and it would be more interactive. At this size, we're dividing people up into 6 different groups, and they're going to work as groups on those projects. So we're adding an interactive element that is targeted at the particular size of the audience. So the size, the number of people that you're teaching is one of the first things you want to consider. You drastically change that when you have more individuals. It's different to teach 80 than it is 800, and how you get feedback also changes. At 5 people, you can ask a few questions afterwards. At 30, you can send out a survey. At 500, your response rate is going to go way down on that survey, and you may actually need to follow up with people or do some selective questioning of individuals. I'd strongly recommend having some type of a feedback mechanism in your training so that your training can be data-driven. No matter how good you believe that it is, if your end users are telling you that they're not aware of what's going on, then you're not able to redesign. We did surveys at the end of all of the webinars that LSNTAP did for several years. Make the objectives extremely clear and transparent. When you are sharing these webinars or trainings or small focus group discussions, whatever it is, list very easily the 2 or 3 things that somebody's going to take away from that 5-minute video, that hour-and-a-half workshop, that 2-day training, and make it easy for people to opt in based on what they're going to practically learn from that. The worst way to teach is the way that I'm teaching right now, lectures. Lectures put people to sleep. Having one person talk to everybody fails. So let's talk about alternatives to lectures. What are some better ways to have an interactive training outside of lectures?
You can raise your hand, or you can just shout it out. We don't care. Alternatives to lectures, just a really simple question.
So the comment here was real-time technology training with their computer. So if you're going to teach people how to do password security, don't just tell them download a password manager. Have them at their computers interactively doing it and then checking in on them. So give them a task and a way to verify it, definitely.
Videos. Videos are good.
Great comment here, like having short videos and your type of video, and this is one of the mistakes I'll be honest about for LSNTAP. We took our large hour trainings and then we recorded those and we dropped them on YouTube. They got hits, but people did not make them all the way through. If we took the same topic, distilled the main points, put it into 10 minutes or less, your hits went way up and your retention went way up, and then give people a way to interact with those presenters externally. If someone is live, they're going to pay more attention. If it's a video, you've really got to shorten that content down significantly.
SharePoint, we're trying to add a brief time. I really like to be able to do the demo and make a video with another option because this is how Brainerd works, this is how you
Yeah, very short how-to videos or that have step-by-step, definitely, with a list of instructions that's external or a checklist external, definitely. Any other methods to make things more interactive? Yes, and we talked about this computer-based training that is interactive in some way. We talked about this in the security session yesterday with regards to security. There are programs, some of them are even free, where they will send out test phishing emails to your staff. And then when they click on that, if they report it to IT, they're given a congratulations. If they click on the link there, it reports it back and it gives you an opportunity to have some interactive training there with them because they didn't identify that link. But it's practical and it gives instant feedback, definitely.
So I guess just on a basic level, I think one of the alternatives to a lecture, which is like one person here speaking out, which in some ways a lot of videos are like that too. It's one person, either it's their talking head in front of a bookcase speaking out and just like, all right, we can't like be in front of 2,000 people, so we're just gonna have a lawyered video do that. One alternative is this other model, which is kind of what we're doing now. We're going towards that, which is conversation. And so like it's active listening, and I guess the key word is active. So listening to what people are saying and then building right off of that and going, and again, conversing like a good party.
I'll mention one of my favorites, which we've done a little bit in the legal space, but is hugely popular in the technology space, is game jams or hackathons. A lot of people think that the project that comes out of that is really what you get, but for most people who participate in those, it's the peer learning experience of coding something together, of building something together, of doing user testing together, that interactive 8 hours or 72 hours working on a team, learning from each other and their diverse skills is so much more interactive. Even if the project that comes out of that hackathon never makes it to something that is commercially viable or helps clients, you picked up a lot of skills in a short period of time in a very interactive way. I definitely recommend checking that type of learning out and scheduling things that are more interactive, the way that IP and at the courts does interactive trials, mock trials, those type of things. That's such a better way than read a book on how to do a motion to compel and dryly read through what a judge might say in response.
And one other quick idea just to think about for the projects later is the asking people to teach someone else or to teach you the topic. So you can do a little bit of brief lecture on a topic and then ask the person to explain it back, or can you teach me this now? And then that's a good way to start that facilitated engagement.
With inside of lectures, look at soliciting questions, polls for the audience, ask for feedback during and after. Additionally, when putting together trainings, think about how you're going to promote them. Where are those individuals that you want to show up to this? No matter how awesome your training is, if nobody shows up to it, it doesn't help. Lawyers love email. Clients love Facebook. When we put together events on trainings and we put them out on the LSNTAP email list, our attendance goes way up. When we do a foreclosure training with the public and we get a community-based organization with a good Facebook presence to share that event, the attendance goes way up. So go to your users, don't make them come to you, figure out how they communicate and share that. Last thing on slides, this is one of my personal pet peeves. Slides are different than speaker notes. Speaker notes are where you read everything that's on there and you put people to sleep. This was an actual slide that was submitted to a presentation in Washington State. It put me to sleep. This is how we changed it. Immigrant Rural Legal Assistance Project and a picture of Western Washington on it. So it reinforced with an image what was being said there and made it much more understandable. Look for great visuals. They help people remember things.
Quick poll about polling. How many people know a application that you can put in a PowerPoint or a presentation and poll the audience. A specific example of that. A lot of people. Okay, just shout it out.
Cali has our own Cali InstaPoll.
Cali InstaPoll, free. Go to meeting polls. Google Slides has a, we could have done that. We did do that,
This is Google Slides.
but it wasn't on my computer for some reason. I don't know. Do you know the technological
We were
reason?
using a different technology that I had on a tab. So.
More later if you want to hear about that. Any other polling training ideas? Poll everywhere. Okay. That's the one we were going to use. That's a good one. So I'm going to talk a little bit about education training, staff, and the public, based on some of my experiences. How many are used to this sort of strategy for implementing a training program or any sort of project, either at work or in your personal life? Somebody has a hot idea and it's implemented. Well, we recommend something else. Something more like this design. See these circles and arrows? It's an iterative process. So even before you start, you ask people, well, what should we train you on? What do you need help on? You ask people. Then you maybe create some prototypes or alternatives or ideas, and then you ask people again, a pilot test. And then you come up with, like, you refine it, maybe this is a better training, yep, this is the one we're gonna go with, and you do it, then you implement it, and then you ask people again. How did that work? Did that actually help you? And I guess this is gonna be my main idea and something to bring up in all of the different little project groups. Asking people, asking people, asking people. And I know that's not really a tech fix. It's more of a like educational idea, but that's gonna be my big idea. So that all came from that chart, those charts, came from this book that I highly recommend. If you've never done a focus group or user testing or human-centered design or asking people and you have questions about how many people should be in a focus group? How do you promote it? Like, what kind of questions? How do you do a facilitated discussion? Do you just like, should you give people coffee or not? All that kind of stuff is in this practical guide for applied research. For lawyers, non-lawyer staff people, this is a book that I'd highly recommend. Another one, more legal services specific, Reaching Your Readers. This is like from 2007. Legal Services Society of British Columbia. They just changed their name, we just learned. I'll have to look it up later. Legal Aid. Legal Aid Now. So this is Washington Law Help's YouTube channel, Northwest Justice Project Washington Law Help. We're kind of putting both of the things on the banner now. This is the YouTube channel. These are the videos that we've made. These are little animations that I drew on a whiteboard. So, great. There's videos. They're out there. Are they helping? We hope so, right? Like, I hope people are learning about landlord-tenant law. But I also know, like, as a staff attorney on the CLEAR hotline, I'm talking to people every day who have not seen these videos, and they're getting evicted. So, I can tell people about the videos, but it's too late at that point, right? So, a lot of people were always asking us, do these videos work? Lawyers, mainly, in the community. Are those videos even helping people? Aren't they kind of offensive because they're animated? Don't people like need more serious videos? Is it even worth making videos at all? I don't know. Then we'd hear other anecdotal evidence over here. Yeah, I think videos are a great way to learn. Some people are visual learners. Not everybody can read. We have the videos in Spanish, that's good. But we didn't really do a focus group or ask people until we had a TIG a couple years ago and asked people. And so I actually made some videos, and then we had 3 different projects. We went out to senior centers to talk about some videos that I made about power of attorney documents and living wills. We went out to a farm worker community to talk about a really complicated, arcane topic about filing income tax if you have an H-2A visa, and also to warn people about these like predatory tax preparers. It's like really important, but very complicated and confusing, even to like, I didn't know anything about it at all when I was making these videos. I had to learn from these other lawyers, what is this about? And we showed these videos to farm workers in Spanish. And then we also had videos about the Section 8 voucher program, how to keep your voucher, how to protect your subsidy for residents at a transitional housing program who were domestic violence survivors. Now, all these videos were like, people in the community were like, we need a video, can you come make a video? Okay, sure, but then we took it that one step further and actually showed it to people and asked them what they thought about it, and we learned a lot. So I made a guide. It's available on lsntap.org, how to make and test videos with limited time and money. But the very first thing, step one, is ask your community members. And I know it sounds so simple, why do you even have to say that? But I think this is a basic step that I've been guilty of it too. It can be overlooked. And I think the key thing is like asking the community members, do you need a video? What kind of video? Should it be on YouTube? Should it be on mobile? Should it be shareable on WhatsApp? All those kinds of things are important to ask. This is a case example. So how many people are familiar with the public charge test or public charge rule? It's sometimes called. How many people have never heard of that? Okay. Again, it is a complicated topic, but it's also extremely important. And this rule is something that was going to make many people ineligible to get a green card if they had used certain public benefits. And the rule was going to change on October 15th. The rule didn't apply to everybody. It didn't apply to people who were refugees or asylees. So a lot of people in the refugee community didn't know that though, and so we found a hospital and a lawyer. We have a medical legal partnership. How many people are familiar with that idea, that concept? So doctors and lawyers were like, we need to get this news out before October 15th. So can we make a video about it? Sure, it's gotta be in 6 different languages. Amharic, Tigrinya, Chinese, okay, we better do it, and let's do it quickly too. But again, this is something like, I'm a lawyer, I do mostly housing consumer, I didn't know about this topic. So I had to quickly learn about it and distill it down, and I asked some lawyers like, what's this topic? What is it about? What do we need to tell people? Here comes this 3-page document of stuff to say to people. That if I just sat there and read it, it would take 12 minutes. Nobody's gonna watch that. So I had to work with these lawyers to get it down. This is the usual video making process. We need this down to 45 seconds. Nobody's gonna watch a video that's 6 minutes long in an emergency. I'm sorry, but I just don't think they're gonna do it. Do you do it? Does anybody watch, prove me wrong, do people watch 6-minute videos, educational videos? I sometimes watch cooking videos that are like 3-4 minutes long. Right, if it doesn't load, or if in the first 10 seconds it looks terrible, you're off, right? You're done. So, in any case, we made these videos. I hope they're out there doing their job, because people should not go to the emergency room because they're afraid of this rule. They should continue to get health care, and that's the whole point. So, originally, the people in the hospital wanted people from the hospital who were credible, trusted authority people to be the talking heads on the videos. That was the idea. It was we got to have people who are trusted in the community saying the stuff. Just talking to them, it's well, are those people going to memorize this 1-minute script and be able to do that? Are they okay having their face on a video that's on YouTube? Okay, no, they weren't comfortable with that. So we did animation. I used a combination of drawings that I drew on whiteboard, and then the program was Video Scribe. Hot tip, it's like a really quick animation software. Video Scribe subscription service. Video Scribe, and it's Sparkle. It's a Sparkle project. I think we just bought it one time. Like one license. It's like a mock whiteboard animation. It can have like a pretend hand drawing. I took the hand out because I didn't like how that looked. So this video's been up a month. The one in Spanish has been watched more. This one has 8 views. So what do I think we should do? Does anybody know what I think we should do now? Ask people in the community, is this the best way to learn this information? Can you even learn it? Does this video make sense? Is it offensive? Like everything, right? I think that'd be great use of our time. But of course, we got other stuff to do. Just briefly about field testing focus groups. You're gonna learn it all if you get that book. But we just had posters, like Sarah was saying, promoting. We did do gift cards. Senior centers, yep, brought coffee, bagels. And honor the space. Give people a safe, comfortable, confidential place to tell us. And the main point of it is we're testing these videos. We're testing our resources. We're not testing your knowledge. If after our video is done, you still don't know about the Section 8 voucher program, that's not your fault. That's this video's fault. So we got a lot of really good feedback from these sessions. Do as many as you can to get a pattern of comments. You'll learn cultural context. I just flat out admit, I'm like a lawyer standing at a senior center. People think like, here we go, this is gonna be the what we need to know. But it was more of a discussion, and I think like, there is a bit of a skill to it, the facilitated discussion. And there is some things you can learn, but it's not rocket science, I guess is it's a conversation. So like when I'd get into a session, I'd try to like have the 30-minute discussion about the video at the beginning, and people would have legal questions. What does durable mean? Even though the video just explained it, right? The video didn't do a good enough job. I would say, good question. We're gonna write that down. I'm gonna answer some of those legal information questions at the end, but right now, can you tell us what you thought about this video? Can you tell us if you use YouTube? Do you like how the animation looked? This goes for websites too, how to navigate. I mean, we've been hearing about user testing throughout the conference, so I'm sure it'll be no surprise to learn that we learned a lot when we actually did some testing at a library clinic about our interactive interviews. We learned that some people didn't want to read the instructions, they really did want a video about how to use the module itself, and we made one, and it's getting a lot of views. People are really watching it. I don't know if the video is working in the way we intended because we haven't really done that testing, but I think that would be a good use of our time. And this is just that was all public legal education. Briefly about training staff, because I do some of that too. We got SharePoint, and we kind of did a version of SharePoint for the CLEAR hotline, for the hotline attorneys to do a manual, a wiki. Just sort of as people come on board, it would be like a family law, here's what you need to know. And we did do a video about how to upload and tag, and how to use the manual itself. And I think it worked for some people, the videos. But I don't know, it came to a point a year or two ago where some of the people who were charged with putting content on the manual were having trouble with some of the HTML bits. Anybody familiar with SharePoint and how you don't have to be a coder to make these websites, but it can kind of help if in these certain, everybody know this? So it was a decision of well, is it worth the investment in time? I don't know. But the only way that I knew how to figure that out is to go physically into each person's office, sit down with them, kind of do a 30, 45-minute interview, and ask them and watch them use their computer. I think that was really important, being in their office and have that little trust session. A lot of people love the SharePoint. Like, it's a lifeline. Some people had still never accessed it. They did not know what it was. But we learned that a lot of people would use it and as I demonstrated it, but it had to be that one-on-one. I think a lot of people, lawyers, with tech stuff, they're not gonna announce it in front of a whole group. Like, I actually still don't know what people are talking about when they say the word browser. But I think there are lawyers who are, and you gotta meet people where they are, it's fine. Like, just, here's what it means. Chrome, Firefox. So hopefully there's some ideas. We're gonna get to the project soon.
Great. So I am going to talk about one particular training that we did for staff at TRALA, Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. And I think one thing that's on a lot of people's minds is, doing trainings that are reaching a really large audience, and how to do effective webinars. And I feel most comfortable doing in-person trainings, especially because I want to get that interactive piece. I want to really create a classroom culture, another lesson from teaching middle schoolers. The feeling you create in the room and the goals you set out for your audience really affect how people take in information. So this mattered enough to me to travel to some of our different offices, and maybe sometimes that's the real solution is continuing to do things in person and giving people the raw ingredients to know what resources they have and to know how to solve some of the problems that will come up after you're gone. So I came across a program that the New York Times implemented to teach their reporters about data analysis. And they made all of their training materials public so that people could replicate them in a way that worked for their organization. So this was targeted to journalists, but I'm going to read you just like a quick quote from their article about this project, and you can tell me if it sounds familiar. Fluency with numbers and data has become more important than ever. While journalists once were fond of joking that they got into the field because of an aversion to math, numbers now comprise the foundation for beats as wide-ranging as education, the stock market, the census, and criminal justice. More data is released than ever before, and increasingly government, politicians, and companies try to twist those numbers to back their own agendas. And then she goes on to say, we wanted to help our reporters better understand the numbers they get from sources and government and give them the tools to analyze those numbers. At a session yesterday, somebody asked, how do you respond to, this was to a group of law students, how do you respond to someone who says, lawyers don't need to know how to code, they just need to know how to hire someone who can? Well, it's actually really valuable to be able to sort your spreadsheet in a way that you can make sense of the numbers. And a lot of folks on staff didn't really know how to do that. So it felt relevant to me to translate that curriculum to our staff as well. And since I was traveling, it was really important to me to not be wasting my time or the people who I was with's time. So I wanted to make sure that people were leaving this training actually feeling confident, being able to use the tool that we were setting out. So when it comes to culture, I keep it light, include some memes. I don't know if you know what a meme is, but you probably do at this point. So part of my background was running volunteer tax prep clinics. And when we got a pep talk from our leader, and he said, you don't need to know everything in the Pub 4012. I don't know if you know. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to memorize it. You just need to know where to look. You need to know what your resources are so that when you have a problem, you can search for it, for the answer. And so that's kind of what I put out there for these trainings. I I Google every formula that I use all the time, and so will you. So creating a sense of comfort and like humility, and it's like one thing to say like let's fail forward, but it's another to actually admit that like I fail all the time, and here's how. So then another thing that I think is really important is creating as many entry points to your information as possible. So we do paper handouts. We also do have the digital materials. Those digital materials all link to each other because there's nothing more frustrating than having one link to one thing and not being able to find that link and then having to search and being confused. So as many different ways back to the information people are trying to find as possible. And laying out the agenda so that people know what to expect and where you are, and so that they can return to it and jog their memory. Also, and I have an example of this here, clear directions that people can return to and walk through on their own. And I know we like videos, but I don't like having to put my headphones in or make sure I'm in a private place. I usually look for a transcript, and then I'm like skimming through the transcript to find the actual relevant information. So in an outline form, step by step, what do you need to do in order to accomplish what we did in this training? And at these trainings, people are bringing their computers and walking through the examples that we do. So I make the raw data available, and we just go through skill by skill. And it starts with something as simple as, what is a workbook? Let's like look at the anatomy of a spreadsheet. I also really love, okay, I'm not gonna say the word yet because I'm gonna poll you on how you think it's pronounced, but short repeating videos that show an action over and over again, especially with a more technical subject, because people really, they get confused with just like the location of what they're supposed to be clicking. So, don't say it yet. So you can record yourself doing something on your screen and include it in a PowerPoint. You can include it in digital materials. And sometimes people just want that 1 second in a video where you're doing the one thing that they can't figure out how to do. So this is the tool that I've used to do this. Again, I'm not going to say what it is out loud, and I have a link to all these materials that I'll provide you with toward the end. But also within PowerPoint, there's a tool to record something on your screen and then insert it into your PowerPoint. But it's really simple. You download the app, and then you can use the recorder. You can set different settings. So if you see here, anytime it clicks, there's a yellow highlight, so it's obvious where you clicked. You can keep the cursor out of it completely, so there's no cursor. You can keep the cursor in. You can also slow it down. So there are a lot of tools within. It's super user-friendly that will help you make those little videos. So now the big question, is this word pronounced GIF or GIF? Okay, so shh. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's GIF. Okay, and raise your hand if you think it's GIF. Okay, I don't think there's a right, what? Okay, now you can shout which one you think it is. Well, now we know what the divide is. There's no right answer to this question, and whatever you said is fine. And that's the classroom culture we're trying to create here. Also, this computer is going to die. Okay, so so another thing that's really important, if you want to make sure you're not wasting people's time, is pre and post testing, which sounds a little bit scary, but doesn't have to be. I use a Google form that I send out before a training so that I can understand what people already know and what topics they're most interested in. And then I give them pretty much the same survey afterward. And I'm not tracking, Start said this in his pre-survey, and he said this in his post-survey. I'm just looking at the aggregate. Was there a change overall? and that keeps it really simple for me. And I'll go through each skill that I plan to cover. So is it new? Is it familiar? Do you feel confident using it? Do you not feel confident using it? This doesn't make any sense at all. And then what that kind of looks like, this is a little bit of a mess, but I can see overall which skills we should definitely focus on, even if something might be familiar, but they don't feel comfortable with it, just kind of understanding how that might differ. And beyond the pre and post, you can check on how people are doing during the training. So another middle school tip, you can do, okay, I feel great, I'm like, okay, I'm very confused. So like right now, thumbs up if we're feeling great, middle if we're like kind of neutral, down if we're confused and tired and it's still only 9 a.m. So you can kind of, I see some thumbs up. You can take a temperature check of the room to see how people are doing. And if eyes are glazed over, you know you're doing something wrong. And you can adapt some of this pre and post testing for your outreach too. So we had an outreach program on educating about sexual harassment. I created a pre and post test that just took some of the materials from the training and worded them differently to hopefully disguise the answer a little bit and to make it easy for the trainers rather than having them manually enter every handwritten choice, just had them do the aggregate. How many of the right answer did we get on the pre-test? How many of the right answer did we get on the post-test? This could be successful, except the person implementing the program didn't think that it actually captured the impact of the training. So it was an idea. Somebody could run with it. It didn't necessarily work for us. Then homework, middle school. So you can't make it mandatory, similar to my summer teaching experience, but you can make it useful. So a lot of people have said, I want to be able to use Excel, but I know once I leave this training, I'm never going to use it, and then I'm going to forget everything. So I give them something useful to do that answers a question that's relevant to their work, and have them respond to me and tell me the kinds of problems that they're having. And that way, so I'll say something like, go through using an export of our case management system data, tell me how many of this type of case your office handled in January and in March, and which one was bigger, and why do you think that was? So once you get them hooked on this type of investigation, they're never gonna stop. They're gonna be asking and answering questions all day long. So giving homework to reinforce the concepts, and again, not wasting people's time with that work. So to access some of the things that I talked about today, I'm creating 2 entry points here. One is a QR code, which you can open up your phone and open up the photo app. If you hold it up to the QR code, you should get a little notification of the link. So that's one way to provide people access to materials. Another is a tool called Bitly, and that just creates shortened, more memorable links. So here you would go to bit.ly/trainITC20, and that's going to take you to the same place as the QR code. So that's where you can see the New York Times materials, how we adapted them, and then some other and the screen to GIF app that I showed you. But again, creating lots of entry points and making it comfortable and easy for as many people as possible.
Thank you, Lizzie. So, project groups, do you think in 10 minutes, each of these 6 groups can come up with one new action step and be able to share it back? So I have to apologize because I talk too much. Does anybody feel comfortable, confident sharing out something they found through their discussion? Just let it go.